The Clockmaker's Secret. In the small, mist-laden town of Wellesley, nestled deep within a forgotten valley, time was a peculiar thing. The town's heartbeat echoed through the rhythmic ticking of countless clocks, large and small, ornate and plain, each crafted by the hands of the mysterious clockmaker, Mr. Elias Roth. Elias Roth was an enigma, a man in his early 60s with a shock of silver hair, piercing blue eyes, and a habit of speaking in half-whispers. He had arrived in Wellesley 20 years ago, setting up shop in a weathered building at the town's centre. No one knew where he came from, but his clocks were unmatched, attracting customers from far beyond the valley. Some said his clocks could mend broken hearts, while others whispered that they could even alter the course of fate. Among the townsfolk was a young woman named Clara Winslow. Clara, a bright-eyed dreamer with a penchant for the unknown, had lived in Wellesley all her life. She worked at the local library, where the dust of old books filled her days with stories of distant lands and ancient secrets. Yet, despite the charm of her town, Clara felt a gnawing sense of restlessness, a feeling that something was not quite right in Wellesley. It began with the dreams. Clara would wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, as vivid images of a towering clock with shifting, shadowy hands haunted her sleep. The clock's face was always just out of focus, but its ominous ticking rang in her ears long after she awoke. Determined to understand the meaning of these dreams, Clara sought out the one person who might hold the answers: Elias Roth. On a cold, foggy morning, Clara made her way to Roth's Clockworks. The shop was a marvel of craftsmanship, filled with the steady tick-tock of countless clocks. The air smelled of polished wood and metal, and the walls were lined with gears, springs, and pendulums. At the counter, Elias stood hunched over a pocket watch, his hands moving with the precision of a maestro. "Mr. Roth," Clara began, her voice trembling slightly, "I need your help." The clockmaker looked up, his blue eyes glinting with curiosity. "What troubles you, Miss Winslow?" Clara hesitated, then explained her dreams in detail. She spoke of the towering clock, the shifting hands, and the dread that gripped her each night. As she spoke, she noticed something strange. The clocks in the shop seemed to tick in unison, their rhythm perfectly synchronized with the pulse of her words. When she finished, Elias was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, he spoke in a low, deliberate tone. "There are many kinds of clocks, Miss Winslow. Some measure time, others measure destiny. What you describe is no ordinary dream. It may be that you have glimpsed something beyond." "Beyond what?" Clara asked, a shiver running down her spine. "Beyond time as we know it," Elias replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I fear that the clock in your dreams may be connected to something far older and more dangerous than you can imagine." Elias led Clara to a hidden room at the back of his shop, a place no customer had ever seen. The room was filled with strange, intricate devices, clocks unlike any Clara had ever seen before. Some had faces that seemed to shimmer and change, while others had hands that moved in impossible patterns. At the center of the room stood a large, ornate clock, its face covered by a velvet cloth. "This," Elias said, gesturing to the covered clock, "is the Chronos clock. It is the first clock I ever made, and it is the last." Clara frowned, confused. "I don't understand. How can it be both?" Elias sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. "The Chronos clock is no ordinary timepiece. It was crafted with knowledge I should never have sought. It can control the flow of time itself, bending it to the will of its master. But there is a price. Time is not meant to be controlled, and those who try to do so risk unraveling the very fabric of reality." Clara's heart raced as she realized the gravity of what Elias was saying. "Are you saying that my dreams—" "Yes," Elias interrupted. "The clock in your dreams is the Chronos clock. It is calling to you, Miss Winslow. It wants to be found." Clara stared at the clock, a mixture of fear and curiosity swirling within her. What happens if I find it? Ilias's expression darkened. If you find it, the world as you know it may change forever. The Chronos clock is not just a tool, it is a gateway, a link to forces that defy comprehension. I had hoped to keep it hidden, to protect others from its power, but it seems that it has found you nonetheless. Clara felt a surge of determination. Then I need to find it before it's too late. What must I do? Elias studied her for a moment, then nodded. Very well. But understand this, Clara. Once you begin this journey, there is no turning back. Over the next few days, Elias taught Clara the ancient techniques of clockmaking, showing her how to read the intricate symbols and patterns hidden within the gears and cogs. He explained that the Chronos clock was hidden in a place where time did not flow normally, a place that could only be accessed through a special sequence of events, a series of temporal puzzles that would lead her to the clock's location. As Clara delved deeper into the mysteries of time, she began to notice strange occurrences around her. The clocks in Wellesley would sometimes stop for a few seconds, then resume ticking as if nothing had happened. People would forget brief moments of their day, only to remember them later in a strange, disjointed fashion. The town itself seemed to pulse with a strange energy, as if it were a living, breathing entity. One evening, as Clara was working late in the library, she found an old book that seemed out of place. It was a dusty leather-bound tome with no title, but as she opened it, she realized that it was filled with detailed drawings of clocks that resembled those in Elias's hidden room. At the back of the book, she found a map that led to a place deep in the woods, a place marked only as the Lost Hour. Clara knew then that she had to go. The next morning, she set out into the woods, following the map's directions. The forest was thick and dark, the air heavy with the scent of moss and earth. As she walked, the light seemed to shift and bend around her, as if time itself were warping in response to her presence. The path twisted and turned, leading her deeper into the heart of the forest, until she finally arrived at a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone archway, covered in ivy and moss. Beneath the archway was a circular platform, engraved with the same symbols she had seen in Elias's shop. As she stepped onto the platform, the air around her seemed to hum with energy, and the symbols began to glow with a faint, otherworldly light. Suddenly, the world around her shifted. The trees blurred, the sky darkened, and Clara found herself standing in a different place altogether. She was no longer in the forest. She was in a vast, dark chamber, its walls lined with clocks of all shapes and sizes. At the far end of the chamber stood the Chronos clock, its face uncovered and its hands moving in a slow, deliberate circle. Clara approached the clock, her heart pounding in her chest. The air was thick with the sound of ticking, a symphony of time that seemed to reverberate through her very soul. She reached out to touch the clock's face, but as her fingers brushed the cold metal, a voice echoed through the chamber. "You should not have come here!" Clara spun around to see Elias standing behind her, his expression grim. But something was different. His eyes were darker, his face lined with an age that was not there before. "Mr. Roth?" Clara whispered, confused. Elias shook his head slowly. "No, not Elias Roth. Not anymore." As he spoke, the chamber seemed to shift around them, the clocks warping and distorting in a dizzying display of time's fluidity. Clara realized with horror that the man standing before her was not the clockmaker she had known, but something else, something ancient and powerful, something that had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "I am the keeper of time," the figure said, its voice echoing with the weight of countless centuries. "And you, Clara Winslow, have been chosen to take my place." Clara stumbled back, her mind reeling. Chosen? "But I didn't ask for this. I don't want this." The keeper's expression softened, almost pitying. None who are chosen ever do. But time is a force that cannot be denied. The Chronos clock has marked you, Clara. You have the power to shape the flow of time, to mend the rifts and keep the balance, but with that power comes responsibility and a price. "What price?" Clara asked, though she already knew the answer. "You must remain here, in this chamber, for all eternity. You will become the new keeper, the guardian of time. Your life as you know it will end, but in its place you will gain knowledge beyond imagination, the ability to control the very fabric of reality." Clara's heart ached with the weight of the decision before her. She thought of her life in Wellesley, of the people she loved, of the dreams she had yet to fulfill. But she also thought of the dreams that had led her here, the sense of destiny that had guided her steps. Finally, she looked up at the keeper, her eyes filled with resolve. "If this is my fate, then I will accept it. But I will not let it consume me. I will use this power to protect the world, to ensure that time flows as it should." The keeper nodded, a faint smile on its lips. "You are stronger than I was, Clara. Perhaps you will succeed where I failed. But know this, the path you have chosen is a lonely one. Time is a cruel master, and it will demand much of you." With those words, the keeper stepped back, and the chamber began to glow with a brilliant light. The clocks around them ticked faster and faster, their hands spinning wildly as time itself seemed to fold and collapse in on itself. Clara felt a surge of energy coursing through her, a connection to the very essence of time. And then, just as suddenly, it was over. The light faded, the clocks slowed, and Clara found herself alone in the chamber. The Chronos clock stood before her, its hands ticking steadily, and she knew that it was now hers to command. As she stood there, the weight of eternity settling on her shoulders, Clara realized that she had become part of something much larger than herself. She was no longer just a girl from Wellesley. She was the keeper of time, the guardian of the Chronos clock, and the protector of the world's temporal balance. And though the path ahead was uncertain, Clara knew that she would face it with courage and determination. For she had become the master of time, and with that power, she would shape the future. In the small town of Wellesley, the clocks continued to tick, their rhythm as steady as ever. But if you listened closely, in the quiet hours of the night, you might just hear a faint whisper in the air, a reminder that time is not as simple as it seems. And somewhere, deep within the folds of reality, Clara Winslow kept watch, ensuring that time's secrets remained safe for all eternity. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and heartfelt content. Stay tuned for more stories that uplift and inspire. Your support helps us continue sharing these meaningful stories. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next story.